Welcome to Blueprint to Boom, your plan for taking a small idea and building something big. Hello and welcome to Blueprint to Boom. In fact, welcome to the 4th episode of Blueprint to Boom. My name is David Henderson-Begg. I've been running small businesses for nearly 40 years now, and every week we're going to bring you tips and tricks to help you in your endeavours. Now, up until now, our guests have included an IT professional, an accountant, and a digital marketing expert, all of whom advise businesses on their chosen specialist subjects. But we don't just want to do that. We also want to talk to other real business owners. And my guest today is the superlative Annie Quigley, who is celebrating her 40th anniversary as a bookseller at Bibliophile Books. Her resume includes such landmarks as a royal appointment to the Duke of Edinburgh, the president of the Windsor Royal Warrant Holders Association, public speaking engagement, City of London, kudos, and an erotica website. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you for having me,
You're
David.
very welcome. So we are going to do things in a slightly different order today. We're going to start with the shock interview. So every week we like to have an opportunity to introduce our guest in a little bit of a fun way with some questions that you absolutely wouldn't see in a job interview. So Annie, don't, you're laughing already.
Yes.
You don't know what's coming. Annie, introduce yourself to our guests, please. Imagine that you're in a job interview and just tell us a little bit about what you've been doing for the last few years.
Well, the last 40 years has been immersed in books, but then again, I was born in a book, as I often have been described.
How does that work?
That works because my mother was an author.
Ah,
So she has been a storyteller all her life. I think that's an Irish background, actually.
okay,
I
Irish
think
background, very good.
storytelling is part of the trick. And of course, troubadours were storytellers, even to an illiterate audience. So, largely literate Irish people sang and danced and told stories. Anyway, that came through to my mother, I'm sure, through my grandparents. I
Fascinating.
remember that very, very well. So yes, I was born in a very literary household, lots of books on the bookcases, and parents were both teachers, heavily into education, and that it was really out of necessity that my mother became blind, and I started to edit her books. So very much a whole life in books, and then as a professional for the last 40 years.
Wow, that's quite a story. Okay, so here are some questions that someone in HR might ask after half reading a management book. So if you were a book, what would your title be?
Oh, well, actually, I've published this book myself, The Memoirs of an Erotic Bookseller.
We're, we're going to have to find how we tease into this erotica website at some point, aren't we?
Okay.
Okay. Now, before the invention of the iPad, I had books on the go all the time, and I have to say that piece of technology shot that completely.
Mm.
But how many unread books are you currently pretending you've read?
Oh, pretending I've read. Oh my God, that would be about 100,000 because I review, but I often skim read them. So yes, that's a very high total for
But I mean,
me.
you have written 250,000 independent book reviews.
At least
That's
that
insane.
many. Yes.
Of all sorts of genre?
Yes. So a children's book would take a couple of minutes because you want to describe who the illustrator is, what style of illustrations they are, because as we'll talk about later, it's mail order. So it's all about the written word and telling people in a oral description about the content of the book. So you don't want to give away the ending to a story, but you want to tell them what the content is of a history book, for example. So that's the art.
I mean, we were talking to Tamaz Biro from Netzol last week, and one of the key things about that was consistency. But
Mm.
wow, that's consistent. Would you describe yourself as more of a hardback or a paperback personality?
Oh, I'm definitely a paperback. I'm very flexible. I actually am a former gymnast and now a yoga practitioner for the last 20 years. So I'm super flexible. I'm definitely a paperback. Drop me in the bath, I'll still get up and be readable.
Which is worse, using a crisp packet as a bookmark or folding the corner of the page?
Which is worse?
Yeah.
Probably the crisp packet, because you're going to get lots of oil all over the pages.
Okay, small talk, because apparently some interviewers used to think that your hobbies were more important than your skills. So
Mm.
if you could only read one author for the rest of your life, who's getting the monopoly?
It's not one single author, do you know? It would be the Bible.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
mean, there is a fund of stories
yeah,
passed
absolutely.
down the
Yes.
generations, passed through many hands. Love stories are in there, like the Song of Solomon. You know, there's something for everybody in the Bible.
This going back to what you were saying about troubadours, this is obviously
Mm,
quite important for you, the idea of handing stories down.
mm, very much so.
Um, have you ever rearranged a display just because the book cover offended your sense of taste?
Only when I was promoting my mother's books in a bookshop. So the offensive ones were the Catherine Cooksons, which had to go down to the bottom shelf, and then mother's would go to the top
Okay,
shelf.
okay,
So
that's fair enough. I
eye-line, in
think
the eye
you're
line.
allowed that, I
Okay,
think.
thank you.
Okay, questionable management school, classic outdated nonsense. Um, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Finally in the rare book vault?
Oh, I like that one. Actually, wouldn't it be nice to become an antiquarian bookseller? And we were talking about people's inheritance of their
Yes,
parents'
yes, yeah,
libraries, and people don't know what to do with these entire collections, but they speak volumes about the personality of the deceased person.
that's true. That's true. Um, I've got a book which I only discovered by accident, actually, that was given to my grandfather as a prize at school for good attendance in
Mm.
1936.
Mm.
And that's why when I downsize, I am going to have to get rid of a lot of books, but I've
Mm.
got to have to be so careful about not getting rid of little pieces of history like that, because that's not just about the book, but
No, it's a sentiment.
that's about
Yeah.
you know that history that comes with that book.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
books are one thing that do bring that history with them, aren't they?
They are, and many used to have inscriptions on in the frontispiece. It used to be quite normal to write your name in the front of a book, or in a family Bible to put the whole family history, who
Yes.
married who, and births and deaths, and all of
Yeah,
that.
very much so.
So yes, it would be nice to become that antiquarian. I think
Okay, there
an
you go.
antiquarian bookseller.
Let's put a thought in your head.
Yes,
If you were offered a promotion but had to give up coffee, would you take it?
yes,
Okay, so coffee's not that important.
no.
Okay. And the ridiculous wrap up. If you could fire one literary character, who's getting the sack?
Scrooge! How dare he try to spoil Christmas?
Um, how do you handle conflict? For example, someone putting Twilight in the classics section.
Well, actually, I think I'd laugh, which is just my natural reaction just then, because poor them if they've actually misplaced it.
And finally, if we hired you today, how soon could you pretend to like the Da Vinci Code?
I did like the Da Vinci Code, so instantly.
Actually, I thought it was all
It was
right. I know
fine.
that's the
You
sort of
take
thing.
it for what it is.
That's the sort. Well, exactly. And I like books to relax
And escapism.
and
Yes.
escapism.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
absolutely right. There we go. Thank you very much. We've learned a little bit more about our Annie in a little fun shock interview. Okay, so every week on Blueprint to Boom, we like to dig into 3 pieces of news that have found their way to the top of the pile in the last week that affect small businesses and SMEs. So, first up, a story that might just make every business owner sit up and listen. Google UK has released new research suggesting that small business owners could effectively get a whole extra working day each week by using AI tools to automate everyday tasks. Now, I must say, even though I'm in technology, I tend to be a little bit of a late adopter when it comes to things, but I am starting to use AI an awful lot. Have you started using it at all, Annie?
Only to play with, not in a serious professional sense.
It's absolutely exceptional about automating some things. I'm a complete overthinker,
Mm.
but if you just give it an instruction and say, "Can you do this thinking for me?" it really does save me time. Um, Second piece of small business news we've got is that small business British SMEs are missing out on the benefits of new trade deals due to red tape and bureaucracy. According to a report by the British Chambers of Commerce, 84% of firms with fewer than 10 employees reported flat or falling export orders in Q3 2025, despite the UK securing multiple new trade agreements. The report identifies the major blockers as complex customs procedures, additional compliance burdens, and tariffs, which are locking out smaller exporters from the gains larger firms are seeing. Do you do any exporting,
We
Annie?
used to, but exactly for those reasons, we've virtually ceased entirely.
Really?
Changed our order forms, altered the text on it because we can't accept orders from the US because of the tariffs. And post Brexit, the VAT rules are different in every country. So in this country, we have zero rate VAT on
Yes.
books. But in France and Germany and Spain, every single government has a different rate, tax rate on
Yeah.
their books. And we just can't chase the moving goalposts and take the VAT at the country of destination. So it was impossible for our business and we had to cease.
And this is, I think, what government doesn't seem to get.
Mm.
As I
Mm.
said at the beginning of episode 1, 99.5% of businesses in the UK are small businesses.
Yes.
They are SMEs, and they employ a huge amount of the employment of the United Kingdom, huge amount of the turnover of the United Kingdom. But we are not supporting them in helping to overcome these barriers. Small businesses can't have an army of people to
No,
do
because
all
we
the
want to employ
bureaucracy.
people to do the operation in hand of pertaining to the business and not be tax collectors.
Yeah,
It's just
absolutely right.
unconscionable that we have to prepare documentation, and the more you look into it, the more impossible it became. It just doesn't have the value of the orders that were involved in
Yeah.
our case. And
But the third piece of news I have is a little bit more fun. And I saw this one and thought of you. Two of Britain's most enduring storytelling brands are joining forces. Don't know whether you've heard of this.
Mhm.
Agatha Christie's legendary sleuths Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple are making an unexpected appearance in the whimsical universe of Mr. Men and Little Miss.
Wonderful. Put that in your AI and see how.
Yes. The first two titles, Little Miss Marple, Muddle at the Vicarage, and Mr. Poirot, Mischief on the Nile.
Surely Monsieur Poirot, surely. Monsieur Poirot.
Monsieur Poirot,
Yeah, yeah.
Mischief on the Nile, yes, adapt Christie's classic mysteries for preschool and primary age readers,
Oh.
omitting murder, but
Mhm.
retaining the puzzle, the whodunit, and the resolution. The collaboration comes from Agatha Christie Limited, the estate managing Christie's legacy, working
Right.
with Sanrio, the owner of the Mr. Men brand, and the publisher Harper Collins. What do you think of that?
Is Roger Hargreaves still alive? Because he might.
No, I believe it's
Uh,
I believe it's his son that's now managing the affairs after the
Interesting.
family.
And then they'll move on to Monsieur Pamplemousse by Simon Brett when they're a little older. Love it. Why not? Why not? It sounds like an AI marriage made in AI land to me.
Oh, there we go. There's 3 bits of small business news. So now down to business, and what you what you can't see is that Annie brought a prop with her in the form of Lottie, the Whippet, who is absolutely key to the running of Bibliophile Books. And Lottie has now installed herself on one of the armchairs and is curled up and listening to the proceedings.
Good as gold.
Good
Yes,
as
she's
go.
our little mascot.
So, Annie, about you now. What first drew you to bookselling in 1985?
It was very much because I was brought up with a house full of books and two educationalists for parents. Mother became a very successful novelist, and I was always, if not top of the class, one of the best in English at school. So I absolutely loved English as a subject at school.
And you have a story about how you came to Bibliophile Books, don't you? And Charing Cross Road was involved, I believe.
Yes, yes. I mean, I was reading my copy of Bibliophile, which looks like this. It was a bit smaller then, in my mother's study. And I said, well, I'd really like to write for that. So she said, well, ring them up. I rang them up. They said, well, not a chance. You can't go straight into being an editor. But we've got an opening in a bookshop, and it's just off Charing Cross Road. So yes, I did start in a bookshop in October 1985 as a bookseller.
And you, for the benefit of the people that are listening and not watching, you've got the Bibliophile catalogue,
Yes.
which looks like a small metro newspaper
It is.
sort of
It's a
thing.
tabloid-sized
A
newspaper.
tabloid-sized newspaper, but that's your catalogue. And
Yes,
Bibliophile Books is all mail order and all. Is it mail order or website?
both,
Both.
but no retail, no physical shop at all, never
Okay.
has been.
So it's bibliophilebooks.com. Is that right?
Yes,
Yep.
correct, yes.
So how has Bibliophile Books developed over the last 40 years while you've been at the helm?
Well, it's developed since 1978, actually, when I was still at school, from a 4-page tabloid newspaper inserted into.
Okay, that's much bigger than 4
Yeah, and now it's
pages. Yeah.
40. So yeah, it is 10 times the size. So yes, it's developed. It's developed hugely, with the idea to broaden the range so that it became an armchair bookshop. So 30 topics from high-end art and coffee table books, biographies, history, war and military, children's books. And then during the time, it's evolved over 40 years. Computing books were popular once, audio books, and now there's a resurgence in that. But we used to stock a lot of audio books, but not so many are made these days. So I don't come across as many to stock. And then some memorabilia about Bibliophile, with the logo on it, T-shirts and pens and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I remember when I started out in IT, I had to use a book when I didn't know the
Yes,
answer.
yes,
And then the next generation they used Google, and then the new ones they're using ChatGPT now.
yeah.
So it has changed a lot. And actually, how has the business changed with changing times over the last 40 years?
Well, it's changed to deliberately bring in more schools and libraries because our USP is affordability. Most of these books are half price or,
Okay.
or less. So schools, libraries, and then latterly we've done a lot of work with prison services,
Okay.
and we get the best letters from the prisoners.
I saw something that you get regular
Mhm.
letters of appreciation and even
Yes.
gifts on a daily basis almost, you
Yes.
said.
Some listeners might remember a very famous book. It was made into a film called 84 Charing Cross Road. And it was between an antiquarian bookseller on Charing Cross Road, which was the famous bookshop street in London, and an American client and they began a correspondence, a long distance correspondence. Well, mail order is very like that. You're never going to meet the recipient of your letter, but they feel like they've met me because the editorial from on the front page of the newspaper is always from Annie and the team plus cats and
And
the
and the
Whippet.
Whippet.
So they've watched me grow up, buy the business, get married, be widowed, so and so on. They know the whole story. So it's very much these recommendations are from me because I've selected and read and purchased these books outright and done a deal with publishers to sell to the membership, although it's a free membership, for a discounted price. So
I don't think this speaks to the power of small businesses,
yes,
doesn't it?
yes, it
Because you
does.
you are a lot more personable. You
Absolutely.
have more stories,
Yeah,
almost part of the family to some people.
very much so. And they ring up and behave like that and speak like that with the staff as well, because they know it's a small organisation and they're already connected. They've already bought into this. They're ringing to place an order or to to talk about something, or to use us as a search service to find any book on the planet through our contacts, that we might be able to, you know, access a type of book or a particular book that they're looking for them, and they trust us to do that.
And how has technology changed the way that you do business over the last few decades? I mean, you've got big, huge sociological changes that have happened in
Mm,
that period, like the rise of the internet.
mm. Well, starting with desktop publishing. So about 1989, 1990, I bought an Amstrad 386 and PageMaker 3, I think, and attempted doing the layout of this catalogue. On the computer. Now, my boss at the time, while he was still alive, he was horrified. He just didn't think this could ever be possible, because we were paying a Chelsea designer a lot of money to typeset and lay these all out on. And then we would produce bromides, and they would go down to the print shop and go out into hot metal plates, which still has to happen to print a
Yeah, yeah.
newspaper. But at the time, we were literally cutting up columns and sticking prices on and captions under the images and so on. So desktop publishing, I took that over. I would scan pictures from inside the books, write the captions by typing them out, and do the layout of all the text, the art section, the biography section, the children's section, etc., all the way through, and made the catalogue more attractive to us. Scanned this logo and had a go, really. I had a go. Anyway, long story short, the company wasn't making any money, and it was paying the graphic design people, I think, something like £20,000 per issue, with 10 issues a
Oh,
year.
good grief!
And we turned to profit because I was doing it on desktop publishing.
Wow.
So that's how much computerization completely altered this particular business. But also, any magazine publisher will probably give you the same
But
answer.
that's a huge example, though, of how, if you're running a business, you
Mm.
can look at some significant costs and think,
Yes,
is there a better way of doing this?
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
don't just take it as read that this is the only
Only
way to
way.
do it.
And there was
Is
certainly resistance from my boss, because he was, what, 25, 30 years older than me. But obviously, as a 26-year-old, I wanted to get something done. And, and that's actually why he ended up offering me to buy the business when he was dying from cancer, because he could see I had the energy and the nerve to try some innovations and see it through.
yeah.
See it through.
How did the rise of the internet affect you, specifically one organisation?
Well, it affected us because we were there. We were there first. We started our website 98, and I think Amazon came a little later. And of course, they weren't deeply discounting at the time, so we still had our USP for a little while. But we are a curated service, whereas they are just a blank screen where you type in what you would like. They've got some suggestions on the front or within some categories, but it was um, transferring this by making your website look very different, but from any other competitor. Um, it was fun. It's still only a fraction of the actual mail order side of the business, because we're readers. We like the printed word. People like to browse through this actual catalogue and read these book reviews in this format.
But I think what you're saying there is that you're, and again, another lesson for business owners is that you can compete if you add value in some way.
Absolutely.
And the value that
Absolutely.
you're adding is going back to what we were saying a minute ago about the sort of family side,
Yes,
personal touch that you
exactly.
bring to it.
Yes.
And on that note, I should mention the competition question, because Labyrinth Technology is giving away this Galaxy Tab A9 Plus to one lucky
Wow.
person who gets every competition question right. You can
Oh,
go to the website blueprinttoboom.com and enter all the questions when they're all out after the first 6 episodes. So, Annie, what's your competition question today?
oh, I think it has to be on the theme we were just talking about, and that would be, what year did Amazon begin selling books online?
What year did Amazon begin selling books online? Okay, thank you very much. Um, now, Annie, you mentioned your staff.
Mm.
How many staff do you have?
Uh, Now I have 6.
6. But some of them have been with you for 20 plus years.
Yes.
Um, what's your secret to loyalty? What's your secret to culture?
Okay. If there's, I think the biggest secret, if there is one, is keeping your eyes open and spotting talent.
I would agree 100%.
Because some can be hiding behind larger characters, let's say, who make up more noise and maybe paid more and all sorts of things. But there's actually someone lurking there that has the potential to do more if you could just make space for them to pop their head up. So I had a Sir John Harvey Jones type come into the business and do a report on everybody, and it was incredibly unpopular. I had, I think, 20 staff at the time because we had a big warehouse
Okay.
and about 250,000 books in the warehouses. So a lot of pickers and packers. And sometimes I just couldn't see who was doing the work and I needed help. So that's the one time I brought a consultant in and he interviewed everybody, charming gentleman, and then gave very frank reports on each individual person after having interviewed them all and seen us all at work by just observing for about 4 or 5 days and talking to me. So a lot was to do with creating new roles. And since then, the retention has been amazing, as you just said, with the 20 years plus. And the reason there's only 6 now is we separated the warehousing and outsourced that 7 years ago.
Okay.
So now we do the cataloging, accounts, and customer services with the staff in the head office, and a service company brilliantly does the wrapping and dispatch for us. So had to let go those staff in the warehouse, and we let the warehouse go, which was way too expensive to run. So that's the big sort of changes, and the staff came with me. And the other big thing is keeping an eye on pay according to effort and the quality of work. So if they're not contributing to the profit, there's got to be a jolly good reason for it. And I pass on the information about trading with them in a very, not a high level way, but and digestible
Okay.
communications
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
staff, if you like, so that at least twice a year they get a longish letter about how trading is going. And they're not stupid. They know that for themselves. They know if the phone's ringing or if we seem to have been busy. But it does translate into the consequences of profit share, for example.
I was going to ask you about that
Mm,
because someone years ago said to me that they found that they didn't like profit sharing schemes
mm.
because it developed a sense of entitlement. But
Ooh,
you've had a completely different experience, haven't you?
very different. I think the competition that it set up, because it started with the warehouse, was to get, I think it was at the time, 1,750 orders out a week. And if you got over that, then it was shared according to how many the picker and the packer personally had contributed to that figure. And they could see it in pounds and pence in their weekly wage.
Okay.
And
So
it
very
developed competition,
very
very
results
tangible.
led.
Yeah, yeah. And that was great. And then ideas and innovations were also rewarded, and that relates directly to fluctuating trading conditions. So if that didn't happen that year, would still keep the profit share scheme, but it teaches uh, us that where every single person has their responsibility and can make a difference.
Yes. And in a small business,
Mm.
that
It's more
is
noticeable.
so important as well, because the
Yeah.
business succeeds or not. You
See,
know.
I would argue that entitlement, it's quite the opposite. If they always expected that bonus, that would be I'm entitled to my bonus. But if the trading conditions have altered and the effort has
Mm.
diminished, then they're going to see that result.
So transparency is
Mm,
something that
mm,
you've found quite key.
yes.
Um, and the profit sharing scheme as well are two things that you've helped retain staff for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Your management consultant who came in
Mm,
to do the review,
mm.
how did you find that person?
I think it was through somebody like the Guild of Master Craftsmen many, many years ago. One of the
Okay.
old guilds, because I am talking about 30 years ago, this exercise was performed, but it helped enormously wash out, a couple of management level people that just,
And I think
it
that's
was a
something,
mistake that I'd hired them really.
that's something that is a theme of this podcast, is that
Mm,
we all make
mm,
mistakes.
mm,
As business owners, we're making mistakes all the time. We have to
yeah,
be not afraid to make mistakes, but also recognise when you've made a mistake and try to find ways to fix it.
yeah.
Um, and certainly not be afraid to put your hand up and say, "I need help."
Yes, definitely.
I need some expert advice here. I don't know everything.
No, exactly.
Um, we can't talk about your career and Bibliophile Books without talking a little bit about your royal appointment.
Oh, thank you.
That was, I mean, so first of all, let's go back to basics, because not everybody, especially maybe some of our younger listeners, will necessarily know what a royal appointment is.
No,
So
no.
explain that.
I think it started with Queen Victoria wanting to reward some of the tradesmen who were providing them with excellent service and brilliant products. So, for example, if you've ever been to Fortnum and Mason, you might see a big royal crest over their doorway, and it says royal warrant by royal appointment, and you're allowed to use it on this livery, as they call it, on your vehicles, your packaging, in your shop, and you're given this huge parchment certificate thing, handwritten calligraphy, and it's in recognition of everything from chimney sweeps. Good friend of mine's a chimney sweep, and there are a lot of chimneys in all of the royal
Yes.
palaces. Just think. And
Well, I was going to say, it's not just the Fortnums and
oh,
Masons of
it's
this
not.
world, is it?
Or
You've
the
got
Twinings
chimney
tea.
sweeps. I think Rentokil used to have one, didn't
Yes,
they?
yes,
So-
exactly, exactly. So the rat catchers and the chimney sweeps and the tea merchants and champagne houses. But no other publisher has ever held a royal warrant.
And they're not handed out like candy at
Oh
all.
gosh, no.
You have to work for them, don't you? So
Yes.
how did you come across yours?
I'd been selling Bibliophile had been selling books to the Duke of Edinburgh and the librarians at all of the palaces of the royal collection and for the palace libraries, royal libraries, for over 30 years. And somebody said to me, well, why don't you have a royal warrant? And I said, what is it? So I looked it up on the internet and thought, I think we qualify for this well and truly. And what you have to have is a set of accounts to have dealt with the royal household and proof of, with invoices of the services and goods that you've provided over at least 5 years. And then you make an application, and it's very, very stringent, particularly these days on environmental
Yes.
issues. Now, our books, a lot of them from publishers, would otherwise be pulped. So we are the first environmental recycler in
Ah.
books. Secondly, our newsprint newspaper has always been 100% recycled. And so we are never glossy with too much quality ink that is horribly destructive to the environment. I've been an environmentalist and supported the Environmental Investigation Agency for probably 40 years now. So it's always been at the top of my list. So we actually sailed through that and had lots of proof of the books that we'd provided. And it turned out that it was the Duke of Edinburgh who'd been buying them. So he has only gave 16 royal warrants.
Yes, it's not one of the more common ones, is it?
So I was
Or
a
was
club within a
it?
club. There was 600 to Her Majesty,
Yep.
the late Her Majesty the Queen,
Yep.
and a handful to the late Queen Mother.
Yes.
And now it's all changed. So everybody on the death of the Queen lost their royal warrants, and all of them had to reapply at every level. Barber, Wellies, the lot.
Yes.
And it's very much pared down now with new crests and new insignia for
So the King has started issuing new warrants?
yes, and Queen Camilla, and that's it at the moment.
And the Queen?
Yes,
Do we envisage that the Prince of Wales will at some point?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's the natural
Well,
next
that's incredible
step.
that you were one of only 16
Yes, yes,
to have the Duke of Edinburgh's. And
yes.
bless him, I've now got this mental picture of Philip sitting in an armchair in Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle with a copy of Bibliophile Books, reading about what you've been up to
I
for the
think I've
last.
got that picture I can show you, David.
That's fantastic.
So the honour was to meet him. He knew exactly who I was because he'd read this newspaper for decades. So he knew all the news about
But
me.
what fantastic reach
Oh,
you have. You were all the way from, you were saying, about prisoners
yes, yes.
to royalty.
And tiny children.
Fantastic.
Yes. And I got to meet Her Majesty the Queen because as the president of the Royal Warrant Holders Association at Windsor, which is the oldest Royal Warrant Holders Association, because it was proximity to Windsor Castle, saddle makers and all the... Well, Adrian was the saddle maker, Adrian Buttons, and he made a beautiful saddle for Her Majesty for her 90th birthday. Well, she must have got hundreds and hundreds of gifts, but she particularly wanted to thank the association for pooling our money to pay for this saddle. So she invited us to Windsor Castle. And as the president that year, I led the delegation. I was the only female of the 12 of us. And she spent half an hour with us and chatting and talking about the saddle. And
That must have been
it
absolutely
was
amazing.
splendid.
Life-changing moment, I would have
Yes,
thought.
yes,
Fantastic.
yes. She was...
So you cannot talk about Annie Quigley without finding out a little bit more about this erotica website.
Well,
I mean, you list it on your press release, talking about your career, and you told me
yes.
earlier that it was perfectly all right to go there, so I'm going there. So
Oh,
tell
go
me
on
about this
then.
erotica website. What was all
Go
that
on then.
about?
Well, you did ask how technology had changed things or the internet had changed things. Well, of course, the internet was very much driven in the early days with erotica or pornography as well, wasn't it? And let's face it. But people have been buying books on this subject for a very long time. And although there are fewer books published on it, or erotic photography particularly, you get that material online now. But tasteful erotica has always sold really, really well. And way back in 1988, before I bought the company, my late boss, Bill Smith, was actually had up in court under the Obscene Publications Act. He published a book called The Amorous Illustrations of Thomas Rowlandson, big art book full of watercolours by the famous cartoonist Thomas Rowlandson, who was a contemporary with Gilray
Okay.
and George Cruikshank. So we're talking Georgian,
Yes.
high...
Yeah, I can picture it.
Yes, all the silly stuff with the bazooms and all of this,
Yeah.
all the silly stuff. But these amorous illustrations were trapeze artists with all the blousy clothing coming up and actually doing the biz in midair. And it's quite very, very graphic. Anyway, he printed, I think, 7,000 copies in Canada, and they were impounded by the good customs officer in Southampton Docks. So Bill was pulled up in court, and it went to quite high, and they were accused him of confiscated the books under the Obscene Publications Act. And Lady Chatterley, of course, was the famous other book that this happened to. So Bill became quite famous, so did Bibliophile, because it was our imprint that had published.
This comes into the there's no such thing as bad publicity, doesn't
Exactly,
it?
exactly. Well, he got a rather famous art historian called Edward Lucy Smith to help him in court, and Lucy Smith had apparently found where the original watercolours were housed, which these reproductions in the book had been taken from the Queen's private library at Windsor Castle. So the judge bangs down the gavel. He said, "Case dismissed. If it's good enough for Her Majesty, then it's good enough for her subjects."
Oh, fantastic.
So that is actually how the beginnings of what was already a bibliophile trait, if you like, a bibliophile signature. So I found a book called The Memoirs of an Erotic Bookseller, published that, and it was about a pornographer, again in Edwardian times, I think, and pretty lascivious stuff, quite funny. I really only did it as a joke, as print on demand, so I kept up these publications. And then, of course, the internet came, and it was just perfect to organise carnal knowledge, mail order, MALE, mail order, femme fatale, lesbi friends, and organise the books, and then the carnal knowledge were really the photography books, and a lot of beautiful books were being published by the high-end art publisher in Germany called Taschen. So I've worked with Taschen for 35 years now, and still sell their Bettina rhymes and a lot of their Iraqi, their Ren Hang. There's a lot of particularly South Asian photographers' work, but also Erotica Universalis and books that they've kept in print for 30 more years, which is old Victoriana, peep show looking
Yeah, yeah.
postcards and sepia prints of girlies showing their knickers and whatever, and a bit more.
Fantastic. Absolutely amazing.
So yes, it's been good fun. It has waned now, and it's been hugely profitable over the years.
Okay. Well, you have had a very varied career, that's for sure, haven't it, in the
Yes.
book selling industry. What do you see ahead for independent booksellers? What do you see as the future?
I think you're probably talking about bricks and mortar bookshops, because I'm not one of those, but I'm very aware of what they do, because I've been a member of the Booksellers Association of Great Britain for 40 years, and they're very good at adapting. They always have been, and they hold their own with book clubs, author signings, events, launches, mothers and babies groups, and so on. And there's still the serious bibliophiles who want to go into this paradise to explore the bookcases and find a gem. And I've known many superb booksellers, the best of whom was Fred Bass at Strand Bookstore in New York. With Strand Bookstore's slogan is 18 miles of books.
Is
And
it really?
it is. And it's floor to ceiling. There's old gas lamps. It's still used for film sets. It's on Broadway. 828 Broadway is the address, and it's just one of the best bookshops still on Book Row, which it used to be in New York. It was a big book area, but like our Charing Cross Road. And Fred and I worked together for 30 odd years, and he had been a sleeping partner in Bibliophile, and I bought him out when my boss sadly died of cancer. So I joined in 1985, bought the business 6 years later, and bought out Bill Smith's widow and the sleeping partner, Fred Bass. But so I've known and been had two fantastic mentors in those two great booksellers, Bill Smith and Fred Bass.
That's amazing. Well, unfortunately, we're getting close to the point where we have to draw a close to that main bit of the conversation now. There's almost some things there where I think we could have another whole episode just talking about them. But absolutely fascinating, Annie, and thank you very much indeed for your insights into running a small business in the book selling industry. Okay, so now we're asking every guest to give us 3 blueprint bullets, which are concrete, actionable things that people can use to help them when they're running their business. So, Annie, what are your 3 blueprint bullets?
Okay, I've thought about this quite carefully. Number one, a friend helped me on this one, and he's absolutely right. Energy. You'll need it in bucket loads.
Well, you have that. That's for sure. That's for
Well,
sure.
I think
Yes.
you do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. You're not wrong. Yes. If you're running your own
Energy.
business, you've got to have energy, and not energy drinks. Energy.
Yes. And it rubs off, doesn't it? It rubs
Absolutely,
off
it
on
does. Yeah.
everybody else. Number two, I'd
Yep.
say follow your instincts.
Go
Follow
with
your
go with your gut.
instincts. Yes. Yes. Because not only do you have the drive then that you're going in the right direction, you're not contradicting yourself either. I think your instinct is
Well, you're
usually
the one that's had the idea. You're the one that started the business. You know what's in your head. So I
yes,
think that's absolutely right.
and follow it
Yeah.
through. And even if you have to persuade people along the way or
Yes.
adapt
Yes.
it, but at least the instinct should be hopefully, the right thing. So I'd say instincts. And the third one, learn to spot anomalies in your monthly management accounts.
Oh, now I that's really interesting because that ties in with what Margaret was saying about good practice
Mm,
from a financial point of view.
mm,
One piece of her advice was do a budget, and so many
mm,
people don't have that financial oversight. So,
mm.
where are you going with that point exactly?
I remember going on a finance course for non-financial managers, which the Booksellers Association ran. That would have been in the early 2000s. And I could actually read a balance sheet then. And I tell you what, David, I wouldn't have bought the business if I'd been able to read a balance sheet.
So we wouldn't be here now if you knew how
No,
to read a balance sheet in
no.
the
I
in the
spent all,
late
there wasn't much money
1990s.
in the bank, but I spent it all on advertising. But had I not given it that kickstart, we wouldn't have got anywhere. But now I can see, just running my eyes down columns very quickly, especially on a P&L, what glaringly is incorrect. And you start with the top sales line and then the expenses. And if that GP looks wrong, you don't even need to read the rest of the sheet. Chuck it back to the accountant or the bookkeeper because they've made a mistake. If the sales are not recorded correctly, you know it, and
It's sad but true that everything in life, running a house, running a business,
yes,
running a country, comes down to the balance sheet,
it
doesn't it? You've
does.
you've you've
Yeah.
got to have the money coming in to provide the service.
So it starts with the sales, the top line, and then the GP. You've
Yeah,
got to work on that.
yeah,
Keep
yeah.
working on that because costs are only going to rise,
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
we know.
As we know at the moment, yeah. Thank you very much for your 3 blueprint bullets.
Welcome.
Okay, very quickly, Annie, the last section is the scorecard. So, we're asking everybody to rate the current environment for running a small business. So, on a scale of 1 to 5, how supportive do you think the current political and regulatory climate is for small businesses in the UK?
It's got to be one or two, I'm afraid. Very low.
Yeah. Regulation and red tape, how would you rate the level of bureaucracy small businesses face today?
One. Appalling. Too much. Way too much.
Taxation and incentives, how would you rate the tax environment for small businesses right now?
Two.
It's quite interesting because we're building up, different people have different perspectives on this, which was the whole point.
Mm.
So it's quite interesting. Access to finance and support. How do you rate the availability of funding and credit for small businesses?
I would think that's high. 5.
There are some
Mm.
schemes out there if you know where
Mm.
to look,
Mm.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
How would you rate the infrastructure, which includes things like digital connectivity, transport, and utilities that small businesses rely on?
Well, utilities got to be separate because the costs there are astronomical.
Yeah, okay.
But connectivity and so on, it's a 5. I mean, there are jolly good services there. If you can afford them, they're there. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. And finally, stability and confidence. How would you rate the level of stability and predictability in UK policy for small businesses at the moment?
Oh, I'm not a political animal really, but it they
I
well,
should have
it's
said we don't want it to be political. Just what's your gut feeling on this?
I think you've got to get that from within. So, help-wise, probably only 3.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's it for this week. Thank you very much indeed to Annie Quigley for coming and telling us so much about her fascinating career at Bibliophile Books. You can find out more at bibliophilebooks.com. There'll be more information on the Blueprint to Boom website. We hope that you're enjoying this series. We've got 2 more to go this year. Please do like us and follow us, as they say. But for now, goodbye.